Welcome to The Cynical Developer, the podcast that helps you to improve your development knowledge and career through explaining the latest and greatest in development technology and providing you with what you need to succeed as a developer. We've recently launched our Patreon page, which can be found at cynicaldeveloper.com/Patreon. If you aren't familiar with Patreon, it's an easy way for those who are interested in this show to help out by simply pledging a small amount each month in sponsorship. Now that could be as little as $5 a month, which is about £3.80, or as much as you like. You will enable us to dedicate more time creating more content to help you, including videos, more blog posts, and even more shows. So if you can, head over to cynicaldeveloper.com/Patreon and get involved. In this episode, we're going to talk about what to do when somebody breaks your code. Not quite code breakers as you may have thought, but these people are still breaking code. So picture the situation: after completing some epic code, you go and you see your QA team, and this is sort of how the conversation goes. You walk in and you say, "Oh, finished feature X, and it's checked in and it's ready for testing." And the QA says, "Sure thing, won't be able to get to it till the day after next." And you're like, "Yeah, cool, it's fine, no worries, leave them to it." A couple of days pass, and QA comes to you and says, "That feature doesn't work at all. I've raised loads of bugs against it. Did you even test this?" And your response straight away is, "Of course I did. You know, who do you think I am?" And the QA is going to come back with some snarky comment and, it doesn't work and I need to demo this tomorrow, and all of a sudden the pressure's on. So you need to get in there, see what's going on. And when you do finally get in there, you find out that someone in your team's changed some of the interfaces or extended your code, and the whole world has just blown up around your feature. Now, I think this is a conversation we've all had at some point. If you haven't been in that situation or haven't had that experience yet, I can pretty much guarantee you will do at some point. So when does this happen? If you're a sole developer and this is happening, you need to give your head a wobble, unless there's gremlins or pixies or elves coming in of an evening and changing your code. But in all seriousness, working on your own, this isn't going to happen. This normally happens when you're working in a team, whether that be a big team or a small team, it doesn't matter. And it happens because of several reasons, but the two main, or the two most common, are lazy developers or a complex code base that's hard to manage. Now, the lazy developers, this is the people generally just being lazy and not checking the code that they're writing. They just go in, make the change, commit it, push it out to the repository, wherever that is, without even building it in their IDE, let alone testing it. And these are a right pain in the backside. The complex code base, this can happen because your code base is so big. It might be hard to navigate, and the person who made the change wasn't really able to find all the places that the change was going to affect. So what can you do to try and avoid this from happening? Two things that I think are pretty good for helping to avoid that are unit tests and stand-up meetings as well. The unit tests, they really should be catching most of the breaking changes, as these tests shouldn't pass if something critical has changed. If something subtle's changed and it doesn't break the test, then your tests simply just aren't good enough. They're not covering the right things. So you need to just make sure that your tests are pretty vigorous, really. Your stand-up meetings, we'll have them in the morning before you start work. Just a 5-10 minute thing. You'll know them from doing the likes of Scrum and Agile methodologies. And it's a great way to find out of any possible problems. As someone may mention they're having to change some core functionality and you know that your code relies on that, you can take that chance to mention the fact of that to the person that's making the change, so they can test it to ensure that their change doesn't blow up your code. This is the best defense when you've got a large and complex code base as well. And if you're lacking good code coverage in your unit tests, just having that interaction between people, they can sort of discuss it and bring up any concerns or really just talk about it amongst themselves. How to react when this happens. It's quite a difficult thing, how you actually react to the fact that someone else has broke your code. It's a skill, really, that you need to work on. It's very easy to take it personally, especially if the less technical member of the team that's found these bugs thinks that it was your fault. that the feature no longer works. When this situation occurs, you need to take a deep breath, relax, and just think these things happen. These things are sent to testers and test as they do. You should also remember that the code that you write is owned by the company that you work for. It isn't really your code. So don't get hung up on the project being your project and your project alone, and there's only you that can play with it. It's your baby. It's not a great mindset to be in, and it's going to lead you down a sticky path. You should embrace the fact that the code that you write isn't always going to be 100% watertight every time. We all make mistakes. All we can do is make sure there's enough strapping and braces around it to ensure that if there are problems, that we can find them quickly and they can get sorted out pretty quick. Now, if somebody is consistently breaking your code rather than fixing things, maybe it is time to speak to them about it on a more serious note. It is a rare thing that people are breaking your code on purpose, but playing devil's advocate here, if they are doing that, you need to raise concern with your line manager about it. Those sort of people are really toxic for the team, for the department, and you need to do yourself a favour and don't lower yourself to their level. Don't think, well, they broke my code, I'm going to go in and mess around with their code. Be the better person, be the more mature person, and just don't drop into that world. And with that final word of wisdom, I'll leave it there. If you want me to discuss a problem, then drop me a message or comment in the show notes and I'll see what I can do. Thanks for listening to The Cynical Developer. Remember to tell your developer friends and foes about the podcast. Even that fool that keeps breaking your code, tell him. I'm James Stoddart, and this was Dealing with Code Breakers. If you have any questions about this or any other episode, then drop us an email, a tweet, or leave a comment on the website where you can find all the resource links, show notes for each episode. And if you enjoy this episode, please leave a review on your favourite podcast platform, iTunes, Stitcher, whatever it is, and help The Cynical Developer to reach more developers around the globe.